Hello and welcome back to the channel. We dive deeper into George Orwell's Animal Farm, a timeless political allegory first published in 1945 that continues to echo in today's world. In this powerful chapter, we witness two turning points: Molly's disappearance and Snowball's dramatic expulsion. Both moments reveal how individual desires and power struggles threaten the unity of a revolution. Orwell's chilling brilliance lies not only in his critique of tyranny, but in how easily truth can be rewritten. So what happens when loyalty fades and when fear replaces freedom? As the cold grip of winter tightened around Animal Farm, a subtle transformation began to unfold, one marked not by snow or wind, but by the quiet unraveling of loyalty and the beginning of a deeper consolidation of power. Molly, the frivolous white mare, had become increasingly difficult. She neglected her duties, offered flimsy excuses, and spent her time admiring her reflection in the water. But more than her idleness, rumors began to circulate that she had been seen fraternizing with humans, an act of betrayal that Clover, one of the farm's most trusted and observant horses, eventually confronted her about. Molly denied everything. But when Clover investigated her stall, she discovered hidden lumps of sugar and colored ribbons, luxuries forbidden under animalism. Within days, Molly vanished from the farm. Later, it was confirmed that she had defected to a neighboring human farm, lured by comfort and vanity. While Molly's departure went largely unmentioned, the animals soon found themselves embroiled in more pressing matters. The ideological and strategic divide between Napoleon and Snowball had reached a critical point. Their quarrels had grown more intense, with the most heated argument concerning the construction of a windmill. Snowball envisioned a future powered by electricity where animals would enjoy leisure and comfort, freed from the burdens of labor. He devoted himself to the project, studying books left behind by Mr. Jones and drawing up complex blueprints on the floor of an old shed. Napoleon, however, scoffed at the idea. He contributed no ideas of his own, but worked quietly in opposition, offering dismissive critiques and biding his time. One day he visited Snowball's plans, sniffed them dispassionately, and then, in a crude display of contempt, urinated over the blueprints before walking out silently. Despite Napoleon's disdain, the idea of the windmill divided the farm. Snowball acknowledged the effort it would require: stonework sails, dynamos, but promised that its completion would reduce the animals' workload to just 3 days a week. Napoleon countered with a call to pragmatism, arguing that increasing food production should be their top priority, warning that such distractions could lead to starvation. The animals split into factions: vote for Snowball and the 3-day week versus vote for Napoleon and the full manger. Benjamin, the cynical donkey, sided with neither, asserting that life would remain hard no matter what. Amid this ideological rift, another debate emerged: how best to defend the farm from another human attack. Napoleon favored acquiring firearms and training for war. Snowball advocated spreading revolution to other farms to prevent attacks altogether. Eventually, the long-awaited vote arrived. At the Sunday meeting, Snowball delivered a fiery speech, passionately arguing for the windmill's construction. His eloquence swayed the animals, and victory seemed imminent, until Napoleon signaled with a strange whimper. Suddenly, 9 fierce dogs burst into the barn, charging straight at Snowball. He barely escaped, fleeing through a hedge as the terrified animals watched in stunned silence. The mystery of the dogs was soon solved. They were the puppies Napoleon had taken earlier to raise in secret. Now fully grown, they acted as his personal enforcers. With Snowball exiled, Napoleon seized power openly. He declared the end of the Sunday meetings, announcing that all decisions would henceforth be made by a special committee of pigs under his leadership. Debates were abolished. The animals would gather only to salute the flag, sing the anthem, and receive weekly orders. Though shocked by this abrupt shift, the animals felt powerless. Boxer, ever loyal, struggled to understand, but ultimately adopted a new maxim: Napoleon is always right. 4 young pigs dared to protest, but were silenced by the menacing growls of the dogs and the drowning chants of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad from the sheep. In this atmosphere of fear and manufactured consent, a squealer appeared to reassure the animals. With oily persuasion, Squealer portrayed Napoleon's seizure of power as a noble sacrifice. He insisted that Snowball had been a traitor all along, even casting doubt on Snowball's heroism at the Battle of the Cowshed. He warned the animals of the dangers of disobedience and repeatedly asked, "Do you want Jones back?" A rhetorical weapon that always silenced dissent. Meanwhile, the rituals of control deepened. Major's skull was unearthed and displayed beside the flag, a relic of ideological reverence. The animals were made to parade past it in solemn tribute before each weekly assembly. During these brief ceremonies, Napoleon, flanked by Squealer, the poet Pig Minimus, and his circle of dogs, delivered the week's orders. The rest of the animals sat quietly now, clearly relegated to passive followers. 3 weeks after Snowball's banishment, Napoleon reversed his stance on the windmill. He now claimed it would be built after all, though he warned that it would require immense effort and might result in reduced rations. The animals, too confused to question the change, accepted it as another inscrutable decision by their leader. Squealer offered a new narrative. The windmill had always been Napoleon's idea. Snowball, he said, had merely stolen the plans. When asked why Napoleon had opposed it so fiercely, Squealer, with a conspiratorial grin, explained that it was a tactic, a clever ruse to rid the farm of Snowball, who had been undermining their cause. The term tactics became a mantra repeated by Squealer, though most animals did not understand it. Still, between Squealer's smooth talk and the dog's ominous presence, no one dared to question further. Thus, under the guise of progress and protection, Napoleon solidified his authority. The dream of equality gave way to a new hierarchy, one where slogans replaced thought, fear replaced freedom, and power lay, not in collective will, but in the hands of a single pig and his enforcers. As winter descended on Animal Farm, the idealism that once stirred every heart began to fray. The chapter opens not with a violent clash or a dramatic pronouncement, but with a quieter unraveling. Molly's retreat from the revolutionary cause. Her behavior changed subtly. At first, she arrived late to work, feigned mysterious ailments, and spent hours admiring her reflection in the drinking pool. But beneath her apparent vanity lay something deeper, a refusal to surrender her old comforts. When Clover confronted her about consorting with a human from the neighboring farm, Molly denied it, but her inability to meet Clover's eyes betrayed her guilt. Orwell captures the moment with quiet devastation. She could not look Clover in the face and galloped away into the field. Days later, Molly disappeared for good, leaving behind only a stash of sugar and colored ribbons. Her flight represents more than personal weakness. It reveals the limitations of ideological unity. Not all participants in a revolution are willing to relinquish the familiar. In our modern world of 2025, Molly's figure appears in many places in boardrooms, where privilege resists change in communities, where nostalgia outweighs transformation. Her story invites not condemnation but understanding. Resistance to collective goals does not always stem from selfishness. It may arise from fear, loss, or disillusionment. And so a revolution must ask itself, how does it hold space for those unwilling to walk the whole way? While Molly chose to leave, others stayed and faced a more perilous conflict, the clash between vision and power. Snowball, brimming with ideas, proposed an ambitious project, a windmill to generate electricity and lighten the animals' workload. He painted pictures of a farm lit with warm stalls, machines that harvested and milked, and free time for education. In glowing sentences, he painted a picture of Animal Farm as it might be. His imagination stirred hope, and his intellect commanded respect. But hope alone was not enough. Without a word of rebuttal, Napoleon simply issued a high-pitched whimper, and the dogs he had secretly trained burst into the barn, driving Snowball from the farm in a terrifying ambush. With that act, idealism lost to intimidation. It was not a battle of arguments, but a triumph of force. In 25, this lesson continues to echo. Visionaries and reformers often find themselves marginalized not because their ideas fail, but because they threaten entrenched power. The silencing of Snowball is a warning. If we do not protect open discourse, it will be replaced by tactics that crush dissent before it can be heard. What followed Snowball's expulsion was not chaos, but order. The order of autocracy. Napoleon wasted no time in restructuring governance. The democratic Sunday meetings were abolished. From now on, decisions would be made by a select group of pigs under Napoleon's leadership. Orwell writes with disturbing calm, there would be no more debates. The revolution, once celebrated as the dawn of equality, now bore the unmistakable shape of dictatorship. Symbols remained Old Major's skull mounted beside the flagpole, the anthem sung each week, but their meaning had hollowed. The form persisted. The spirit had fled. This transformation feels eerily familiar today. Across the globe, revolutions that once championed liberty have given way to new elites, new restrictions, and new cults of personality. The lesson is clear. Freedom must be sustained, not just seized. When vigilance fades, even the noblest cause can become a mask for control. Yet perhaps the most subtle and most insidious betrayal came not through violence, but through words. In the aftermath of Snowball's expulsion, Squealer stepped in to smooth the contradictions. He declared that the windmill had always been Napoleon's idea. Snowball, once hailed as a hero, was now recast as a thief, a traitor, and a criminal. Orwell captures the manipulation with deadly precision. "Tactics, comrades, tactics," Squealer repeated gleefully, laughing as he spun lies into logic. Here, language itself becomes a weapon. Truth is no longer fixed. It bends to the will of those who control the narrative. In 25, we see this everywhere, from government briefings to media campaigns, from viral tweets to algorithm-driven feeds. Facts are reshaped and history's rewritten. Orwell reminds us that the war for power is also a war for memory. Without a shared sense of truth, societies drift into confusion. And confusion, too, is a kind of control. And through it all, the animals stayed silent. Even Boxer, the strongest among them, found no words to resist. Troubled, he resolved the only way he knew how. If Comrade Napoleon says it, it must be right. Boxer's new maxim joined the old. I will work harder. His strength, unmatched in the field, became a tool for the very power that oppressed him. Around him, the dogs growled. The sheep bleated slogans, and the other animals, confused, weary, afraid, followed orders. This quiet submission may be the most tragic note of all. Orwell understood that tyranny does not thrive merely on violence or lies. It survives on silence. In our world today, millions see injustice yet remain still. The reasons vary. Fear of losing their job, fear of social backlash, or the simple exhaustion that comes from fighting too long with too little hope. But Orwell's insight is clear. Obedience without thought is not loyalty, it is surrender. By the end of the chapter, the windmill is back on the agenda. Napoleon, without explanation, declares its construction will begin. The animals, though bewildered, accept the reversal. Squealer reassures them with his now familiar twist. The opposition was only a strategy to remove Snowball. Tactics, he says again, while the dogs growl and the animals nod, uncertain and afraid. In this chapter, Orwell does more than narrate events. He dissects the anatomy of betrayal. Betrayal not only of people, but of ideals. A dream that began in unity fractures into fear. Innovation is exiled. Discussion is replaced by dogma. Truth is rewritten, and strength, instead of protecting the weak, is conscripted to serve the powerful. For readers in 2025, the parallels are profound. We live in an era of revolutions, technological, political, social, but each is vulnerable to the same distortions. The Mollies of the world will always yearn for comfort over struggle. The Snowballs will offer vision but may be cast aside. The Napoleons will rise quietly and ruthlessly. The Squealers will twist truth into obedience. And the Boxers, perhaps the most dangerous of all, will carry the weight of injustice on their shoulders, believing that to work harder and believe deeper is the only path. And yet Orwell leaves us not in despair, but in clarity. If we understand these dynamics, we can resist them. We can question the slogans, protect the visionaries, and remember that democracy is not a destination. It is a discipline. Revolutions begin in unity, but they survive only in vigilance. As this chapter closes, we're left with urgent questions. What is loyalty when obedience becomes blind? And who really controls the narrative of revolution? In today's world, 2025, where manipulation, disinformation, and tactical power plays remain constant, this chapter teaches us to question authority, examine motives, and protect truth. If this breakdown sparked reflection, be sure to like, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll explore how the construction of the windmill becomes both a promise of hope and a tool of deeper control.